I'm Cristiana Emsley. I'm originally from Romania. I've lived in Wrexham for almost 20 years and I've decided to stand for reform last year. The idea of establishing a constituency office and start getting people through and listening to their concerns and acting on them. I don't think you can say a specific bigger issue because there are so many issues from the NHS, the local economy, education and opportunities for young people. And there I say something that other parties are quite muted on, safety of women and girls and their rights to dignity and safety in public spaces. Well, as we put it in our manifesto, the NHS needs a significant reform. It will remain, just to clarify, it will remain free to the point of contact. What we are looking at is to make it more streamlined, more value for money, cut down waste, and use that particular money to train our homegrown medical professionals. Nation of sanctuary. As an immigrant myself who come here through a proper lawful process, what I'm interested in to make sure that the immigration process and what's all around it is fair to people who are already here, but also fair to the people who come here. And let me be clear, this is not about reducing immigration to zero. You can never achieve that. People will always marry other people in other countries. They need to come here. They go to other countries for work. They need to go to other countries for study. We need the best and the brightest, but it's got to be a system that is fair to everyone. And one thing about Nation of Sanctuary, this is not about compassion. It's about importing votes. And I would just want to remind your audience that only last year in September, a 19-year-old girl from Wrexham was raped by an illegal immigrant. So to have the plied leader saying that there's no such thing as an immigration, that is completely reckless. As already seen in England, the Reform Control Councils have had the smallest increase in council tax. So we're looking at cutting down waste, cutting down bureaucracy and improving frontline services to ensure that the money is properly accounted for. Well, obviously we have to consult with local authorities. And also crucially, we need to talk to property developers. It's already in our manifesto. We raised concerns that the Welsh Government has put additional regulation on property developers that actually doesn't bring any benefits in terms of health and safety, not additional benefits, but what it does, it put the house prices up. So we need to look at whether the regulation actually does work and whether it does help. And you can't look at this just with one size fits all and one particular side of it. When you look at increasing the house supplies, we need to look at how quickly we put the empty properties back on the market, who has access to social houses. We need to have the bans for housing have to be the right one. And just to give you an example, some years ago I was a senior executive working for a local authority just across the border. I was responsible actually for amongst other things, dealing with complaints coming to the authority. And I did that on purpose on top of the job I've been recruited to, because it came just after the local reorganisation in Cheshire, where we had 7 councils merging into one. Obviously you need to streamline those processes very quickly, but also you need to make sure you get the culture right. And we had a complaint coming to the authority from the father of a veteran, of an Afghani veteran who came to the UK to have his legs amputated. And when he was assessed by the local authority, he was assessed as being band E. So basically no priority whatsoever. There was a guidance issued by the Ministry of Defence at the time saying all the veterans and the families of the serving personnel as well, they've got to be put in band B at a minimum. So I've changed that policy straight away, and I'm proudly say that I was the architect of the Army Community Covenant in Cheshire. So what I expect is public servants to have the initiative, the commitment and the drive to do that extra work and extra commitment for the public good. Well, 2 things. That's a fair question. We've not been in government, but let's have a look to see who is in government at the moment. There are people who have very little life experience or very little willingness and ability to listen to people. I've done a hostings on farming, and I was absolutely gobsmacked to see the level of disdain by politicians and already sitting now in the Senedd, who were even in a 25th hour still unable and unwilling to listen to the concerns of farmers who are the end of their tether. the sustainable farming scheme that clearly is not fit for purpose. In terms of, let me tell you, all the candidates have been recruited into a process of meritocracy. We have real life experience. I certainly have been recruiting in all the jobs I've been doing in the UK. There were positions of regulations and compliance where you can't put a foot wrong. And personally, what I'm looking at getting to grips with is, amongst other things, the sustainable farming scheme. And from a point of view as a woman, making sure that the ruling of the Supreme Court judgment last year, which states that sex under the Equality Act should be interpreted as biological sex, therefore you can actually exclude men from women's spaces and women's sports, that has to be implemented across the board. And it's actually a tragedy that the first female as the First Minister for Wales has failed to do that 1 year on, and applied under in their manifesto. They are basically on page 62, they're actually shredding women's rights. I invite all the female electorate to read page 62 of Plaid Manifesto. Oh gosh, I mean, it's everything. Do you know, I was watching the TV debate and watching our leader, and I have to say I'm proud of him. I'm proud to be represented by somebody like him. It's everything in the manifesto. We are the only party who are not asking for more money, but we are saying we've got to be realistic. The country is nearly bankrupt. We are almost £3 trillion in debt, £140 billion to service the debt, and there's no money. There's no extra money coming through. So you have to actually cut your cloth and see how you can use it better. So from the reform of the NHS to education, that is so much needed, and I'm absolutely reassured to see that our deputy leader, Helen Jenner, is a teacher, a proud Welsh woman who speaks Welsh, and she understands the needs, the desperate need for reforming the education sector, the economy that goes through everything, sorting our apprenticeship for young people, and having worked in nuclear regulation, I know how important it is to start getting the young into the Wilva project, one of them. Cutting the 20 miles per hour, make Wales as a viable place to come and settle here and do business. Gosh, I think that's going to be tangible in every area. And I think best way is actually in 4 or 5 years' time, ask people. I think we'll have a record to be proud of. And don't forget, in next year, it's my commitment to make sure that actually we have a strong representation in the local council, both in Wrexham and in Flintshire. When I came to the UK, by trade, I'm a former police officer from Romania. I was part of my professional development there. I was deployed in Macedonia at the end of the civil war. Met my husband there, I came here, so I came to the UK to join him. My situation is slightly different. But when I came over here, I had to rebuild my careers from scratch, which was not easy to do. And I worked in several local authorities in the northwest of England. I was part of the then recruiting into national security vetting and doing what people have done rightly so for vetting of Lord Manderson. And I'm so pleased that my former employer has finally been vindicated, because knowing what the level of expertise and integrity of people who work in that department, I'm glad now that it is on public record that it wasn't them. They've done the right job. I worked in nuclear regulation and law enforcement. In every job that I was recruited in the UK, I was either recruited as somebody external because they needed a new fresh pair of eyes to come and hit the ground running and sort out those organisations. Or I was recruiting in jobs which were a complete white canvas and I had to perform. I'm good at ruffling feathers, and I'm even better at plucking them. And having stood against some really big organisation and taking them to task about how they deliver and how they treat the staff, I think I'm a very, very good contact for everyone who has an issue, whether in NHS, local council, education, to come and talk to me in confidence and start getting the ball rolling.